Hey guys, Movie Wiz here. In today's video, I will be telling you the story of the neo-noir psychological thriller film Shutter Island. Spoilers ahead. Enjoy the video. The opening scene tells us a story that happened in 1954 wherein a ship is traveling to Shutter Island in Boston Harbor to visit the Ashecliffe Hospital for the criminally insane. In the ship, we find our protagonist, U.S. Marshal Edward Teddy Daniels, washing his face as he appears to be having seasickness. He walks out onto the deck and meets Chuck Aule, who will be his new partner for their mission. When Chuck inquires about Teddy's love interest, he reveals that his wife, along with 3 other people, died in an apartment fire several years ago. As they reach the island before a massive storm arrives, Deputy McPherson and the other officers escort Teddy and Chuck to the Ashecliffe Hospital. Teddy notices that the officers are a little on the edge upon their arrival. During their trip, Teddy observes that the hospital has electrified wire on the perimeter, reminding him of a place similar to it. As soon as they enter the hospital grounds, Deputy McPherson tells them that there are protocols they must follow inside. He explains that there are 3 wards inside the premise. Ward A is for the male patients, Ward B is for the female patients, and Ward C is an old Civil War fort that houses the most dangerous patients. He warns the Marshals that they were not to go there alone without him and Dr. Aule. They engage in a brief argument when Deputy McPherson demands that they surrender their firearms but eventually gives them up. While Teddy effortlessly pulls his guns from his pants, Chuck first struggles to do so but succeeds after a few moments. As they make their way to Dr. Aule's office, they notice that all of the patients are chained up like they're in a prison. They meet Dr. Aule, who explains that their treatment is a mix of law enforcement and clinical care. He said patients previously underwent lobotomies, but they now aim to make their lives as comfortable as possible while they rehabilitate. Teddy opposes the idea since most of the patients are probably murderers. Teddy then proceeds to ask about Rachel Solando, who is a patient that has escaped last night. When asked if she is dangerous, Dr. Aule confirms it, saying that Rachel killed all 3 of her children by drowning them one by one in the lake near their house. Teddy then asks about Rachel's husband, and Dr. Aule tells him that he already died. He then asks for aspirin, saying that he might still be ill due to seasickness. Dr. Aule continues on saying that Rachel thinks her children are alive and pretends that she is not in a mental institution for 2 years, believing that she is at home and all of the personnel and other convicts are just neighbors or delivery men she sees on a regular basis. She refuses to believe she has murdered anyone. He also explains how it is a mystery to them how she escaped by vanishing through the walls. Looking for clues inside Rachel's room, they find her shoes indicating she was barefoot upon her escape. Teddy finds a piece of paper hidden underneath with a cryptic message that says the law of 4, who is 67. Dr. Aule confirms Rachel's handwriting, also saying that it must be something important as he tries to get the paper, to which Teddy refuses to. They then walk towards the hall where Rachel was able to slip by undetected. Teddy, suspicious of the personnel, informs Dr. Aule that they require access to the personnel's information. Dr. Aule hesitates at first, but when Teddy pleads vehemently, he informs him that he will gather them in the common room. They then tour the rest of the island as they see deputy officers sitting by the shore, not really thrilled in searching for Rachel. McPherson tells them that it is impossible for her to get to the shore and the caves beneath it as she was barefoot. Not too far away, Teddy sees a lighthouse which McPherson says they already checked and no one is in there. Back inside the hospital, Teddy and Chuck interview all the staff who seem to be blunt and uncooperative to their questions. They did receive a helpful detail about our primary physician, Dr. Sheehan, who conducted a group therapy right before she escaped. However, Dr. Aule informs them that he left earlier this morning to go on vacation. Things start to get more suspicious at this point. They try to contact the place he's staying at, but there was not any signal due to the heavy storm. After the meeting, Dr. Aule shows Teddy and Chuck around his mansion to have a drink. They then meet Dr. Niegering, who is sitting by the fireplace. Teddy seems to dislike him as the two begin to duel verbally. Dr. Niegering laughs as he remarks on Teddy's extraordinary defense mechanisms. Chuck gets offended when Dr. Niegering refers to them as men of violence, which he clarifies doesn't imply they're violent, but rather that they've seen violence and aren't afraid to use it if necessary. There are flashbacks of Teddy's service as a soldier during World War II, showing a German lying on the floor with his face badly wounded, reaching for the gun, but Teddy slides it away. As Dr. Niegering tries to learn more about them, Teddy has had enough and requests that they be given access to Dr. Sheehan's file as well as the rest of the personnel. When Dr. Niegering refuses to let them because the board of directors has also denied their request, Teddy becomes enraged, slamming the table and storming out of the mansion, threatening to discontinue the investigation the next morning and hand over his findings to the FBI. Before heading to sleep, Chuck asks Teddy if they're really leaving, but Teddy suspects that Rachel is being kept inside the hospital. Teddy has a dream sequence with his wife discovering that he has a lot of empty bottles of alcohol that he has hidden around the house. He explains that the things he witnessed during the war in Germany are the reasons why he drinks so much. She also tells him that Rachel is on the island and that he needs to help her. As Teddy reaches his wife, giving her a back hug, She slowly bleeds and turns into dust while fire and water are seen inside the house. Teddy abruptly awakens and quickly gets up to look for Dr. Aule, informing him that they'll be interviewing the patients who are part of the group therapy Rachel was in, seemingly eager to continue the investigation. As they begin interviewing patients from the group therapy, they all seem unhelpful and sound like they're reading from a script. They then meet a woman who appears to be more normal than the other patients. When asked about Rachel, the woman follows the same script as the nurse they interrogated before, so Teddy cuts him off and instead asks about Dr. Sheehan. The patient says he is a good doctor, then asks for a glass of water as she quickly writes something down on Teddy's notebook. Teddy seems surprised at what she wrote but continues the interrogation, asking her if she has met a patient named Andrew Leeds. In a quavering voice, she replies she has never met him before and hastily walks away. After the series of interviews, Teddy admits to Chuck that he actually requested to be assigned to an investigation in the mental hospital for a period of time. He claims that Andrew Leeds, a maintenance worker at their apartment, was the arsonist who started the fire that murdered his wife. As they leave the hospital grounds, they talk about Leeds, who vanished after the incident. He then goes on to describe Leeds' appearance, claiming that he has a scar on his left temple down to his left lip and that he has different eye colors. They end up in a cemetery, and as they walk along the cemetery, Chuck asks about what the last patient wrote in his notebook, and Teddy shows the notebook that says run. As the wind and rain intensifies, they scramble to find a safe place and end up in a cemetery vault. Chuck shares how he's probably going to kill Leeds twice if the same thing happened to his wife. Teddy relates his World War II experience as a soldier remembering lots of bodies on the ground. He is particularly struck by the sight of a dead woman holding her dead daughter in her arms in the midst of a heap of bodies. Teddy recalls seeing the German camp commander attempting to commit suicide, but he only hurts himself and he lets him bleed to death. After lining up the guards who surrendered, they shot them simultaneously, causing Teddy to be traumatized and be done with killings. He informs Chuck that he met a patient named George Noyce who had been transferred there before, and that he was the one who told Teddy about the insane study going on there. Chuck begins to suspect that Teddy may have alerted the wrong people to his interest in Shutter Island, and that the disappearance of Rachel was staged as an excuse to bring him there as a marshal to investigate where they could make both of them disappear. Teddy is skeptical, but Chuck is convincing, and then the door bursts open, revealing a car flashlight shining on them from Deputy Warden McPherson's car. He drives them back to the hospital, telling them that Dr. Aule is looking for them. They change out of their soap business suits to the white uniforms. The staff tells them that their cigarettes are damaged and offers them 2 new packs of cigarettes. Chuck and Teddy enter a room where the doctors are having an argument on putting manual restraints on 24 patients of Ward C and 42 patients of Wards A and B, due to the massive storm that may result in a power outage, causing the cell doors to open. Teddy interrupts their discussion, confronting Dr. Aule about the note, saying that he heard them talking about 42 and 24 patients, which is a total of 66. He says 67 is the missing patient. However, Dr. Aule shares the good news, saying that Rachel has been found. They go to her cell, and Teddy begins interrogating Rachel, asking her what she did during the time of her disappearance. Suddenly, she walks closer to Teddy, thinking that he is her dead husband. She cries and hugs Teddy, and when Teddy is trying to calm her down, she starts yelling at him. Back in Dr. Aule's office, Teddy begins to feel sick again. Dr. Aule thinks he is having a migraine and offers him to take some pills. Teddy refuses for a moment, but eventually takes it. As they go in the sleeping room, he sees a military man who is the warden giving him a sneering look just before he dozes off. Teddy has a dream where he walks beside the pile of bodies and sees a girl uttering that he should have saved them. He then enters Aule's den, where he sees Leeds is in his chair by the fire. He walks towards Teddy and offers to light up his cigarette, which he accepts. Leeds then turns into Chuck, telling him that they are running out of time. He then sees Rachel covered in blood with her 3 children on the ground. Teddy goes closer to them and carries a child who keeps asking him why he didn't save her. He replies, saying that he tried but he got there too late. The scene changes to their home by the lake, where he puts the child in the water, watching all 3 of them drown. He wakes up startled and sees a vision of his wife in a black raincoat in what appears to be another dream sequence. He asks, "Why are you all wet, baby?" and his wife replies that Leeds is still out there, saying that he needs to kill him. He wakes up in his hospital bed, seeing all the patients evacuating the room. Chuck tells him that the backup generator failed, which means the patient's cell doors are opened. As they go outside, they see that the staff are all busy trying to gather all the patients roaming around the hospital grounds. Teddy then takes advantage of the opportunity to sneak into Ward C to look for George Noyce when no one is looking. They wander inside the building and find Noyce's cell door opened. He suddenly appears from behind, playing the game of tag with Teddy and Chuck. Teddy chases after him, but Chuck falls behind. Noyce grabs Teddy from his back, choking him for a moment, but he gets away and beats him up until Chuck makes him stop. Deputy McPherson arrives and scolds Teddy for his actions. As he carries Noyce out, he asks Chuck to help him, but leaves Teddy, telling him to go for a stroll. Teddy continues to explore inside the building, and he finds a row of cells with patients inside. He then sees one patient sitting by himself and saying the name Leeds. He orders the patient to look at him, and he then recognizes that it is George Noyce who is badly beaten. Teddy can't believe that Noyce is back there, asking who is responsible for it. Noyce tells him that it is his fault and that he seems to know who Teddy is. Noyce yells at him, who keeps his focus on Leedy's, saying that the investigation happening in the hospital is done for him. As he lights up the match again, he hears Noyce telling him that the only way he could find the truth is by letting his wife go. Teddy hallucinates and sees his wife behind Noyce, also saying that he can't. He then runs away with Chuck leaving the hospital grounds. Outside, Chuck tells Teddy that he found Leedy's commitment paper. As he hands it over to Teddy, he does not look at it and focuses on the lighthouse instead. Chuck tries to convince Teddy to just go to Ashecliffe instead since it's getting dark and it may be dangerous. Besides, they already have the proof that Leedy's is the 67th patient. Suspicious about Chuck's identity, he tells him that he'll travel alone instead. He reaches the cliff close to the lighthouse but decides to go back as the tide is high. He looks for Chuck but only sees a burning cigarette on the edge of the cliff. He looks down and sees Chuck's body lying at the bottom. As he goes down, he sees Leedy's commitment paper flying and grabs onto it. When he reaches the bottom, Chuck's body vanishes. He then sees a cave at the side of the cliff with a fire burning inside. When he reaches it, he sees a woman who's hiding a knife from behind. As they get to talking, Teddy finds out that she is the real Rachel Solando, but that she never had any children. She says that before she became a patient, she was a doctor there. They shut her out when she discovered too much about the psychotropic drugs and the surgery called lobotomy, where they put an ice pick into a patient's eye as a test subject and make the patient submissive and lose their memories, which eventually will make them efficient soldiers. She wonders if Teddy might have been drugged inside. She then proceeds to ask him if he had taken any medication and if he has eaten inside the hospital. He confirmed it, and the woman said that the drug may also be put in a cigarette. She claims that psychotropic medicines take 36 to 48 hours to take action and make him susceptible to control. Tremors in his hands will be the first indicator, which he already has. When Teddy asks about the lighthouse, she then confirms that this is where they perform lobotomies. Teddy falls asleep and Rachel wakes him up telling him to leave as they might find her. When Teddy returns to the road, he sees the warden riding a jeep, asking him to hop on. He gets into a strange conversation with him saying that violence is God's gift to men like them. Back at the hospital, Teddy asks about the meeting and Aule says that an unidentified man had beaten up one of their Ward C patients named George Noyce, who also had a long conversation with him after. As he looks for his partner Chuck, Dr. Aule tells him that he went to the island alone. Teddy realizes that they are now putting the plan into motion by insisting that Chuck did not exist and that he might be going crazy. Moments later, Teddy sneaks in to get his tie as he heads his way to the lighthouse. On his way, Dr. Nievering appears and asks him where he's heading, saying that the ferry is the other way around. Teddy sees Nievering pulling out a sedative from his pocket. They talk for a moment, saying that Teddy is wounded from his trauma in his past, and Teddy calmly agrees but quickly injects the sedative to Dr. Nievering's arms, causing him to fall to the floor. As he sneaks around the hospital grounds, he decides to blow up Dr. Aule's car in order to create a distraction. He takes his suit tie and soaks it in gas from the gas tank before lighting it. He sees a vision of his wife begging Teddy not to go to the lighthouse. He lights up the gas tank and quickly dashes away from it. As he waits for the explosion, he sees his wife with a little girl in front of the car and the car blows up. He then dashes towards the lighthouse. He swims over to it, sneaking up behind the guard, suppressing him while grabbing his rifle and knocking him unconscious. He sprints to the top of the lighthouse's stairs, inspecting each chamber, but discovering no operating rooms for surgery. He then goes to the very top and sees Dr. Aule sitting calmly at his desk as though he is expecting Teddy all along. He then asks, "Why are you all wet, baby?" which is a phrase he says Teddy should know about. He also informs him that the rifle has no bullets. He then checks Teddy's tremors and hallucinations brought to him by taking drugs that he has been taking for the last 2 years, saying that he is patient 67 and Andrew Leedy's is his real name. Aule then hands him over his intake form. Teddy gets furious and demands to find Chuck. Aule shows him an anagram with his full name and Leedy's name, which can be spelled the same way, and the same goes with Rachel Solando and her wife Dolores Channel. He says that all of this is just a story he created to deny the truth about his past. He wishes he can have Teddy live in his fantasy forever, but he was too dangerous to everyone around him. Aule points out that Noyce was a fellow patient who Teddy attacked a few days before, and that was why he was all beaten up. Teddy denies this, but the doctor shows him the transcript of what Noyce said to him in the cell earlier. He tells Teddy that the reason why he beat up Noyce was that Noyce called him by his real name. Chuck arrives, leaving Teddy confused as he stands beside Dr. Aule, appearing to be on his side. He then introduces himself as Teddy's primary psychiatrist, Dr. Lester Sheehan. Frustration can be seen on Teddy's face as he has trusted Chuck. Aule pushes Teddy more to accept the reality as he is running out of time. The last few days have been spent attempting to stage a major role play in order to convince him of the reality. Teddy quickly takes his gun from the table and fires at Dr. Aule, whose blood runs down the wall in Teddy's hallucination. The blood vanishes and Dr. Aule explains that his gun was a toy gun given to him when the role-playing began. Dr. Sheehan assures him that they are telling the truth, saying that Dolores lost her sanity, so he goes out drinking, ignoring what everyone's telling him. Then they move to the lake house after his wife intentionally started the fire in their apartment. Teddy gets triggered and grabs Dr. Sheehan to the wall. Aule then shows him the picture of his kids, Simon, Henry, and Rachel, the girl he kept dreaming about, asking him why she didn't save all of them. He tries to deny it, saying he doesn't have any kids, but Aule tells him that Dolores drowned them in the lake. He hallucinates and sees Dolores telling him that he should have not come there and his girl Rachel. We eventually see a flashback of Teddy/Leedy's returning home after hunting bad guys in Oklahoma for a week or two. He looks for Dolores, who was in their cottage acting strangely. He then asks why she is all wet. He asks as to where the children are, and she responds that they are at school. Teddy says it's Saturday, and she smiles and says that they are in her school. Teddy rushes down to the lake, horrified to find his 3 children face down in the water. He cries uncontrollably as he brings them down to the ground, lining them up. Dolores then hugs him and says they should put the kids at the dining room table and have dinner. Teddy is crying and asks if she ever loved him, as she was not making any sense. Dolores becomes emotional, telling Teddy that she loves him. As Teddy cries, telling her he loves her too, we hear a gunshot. Teddy looks down and realizes that he just shot his wife. She lies down and dies together with their 3 children while Teddy cries his heart out. Andrew/Teddy passes out and wakes up in his bed. Now accepting the truth, he admits that he killed his wife because she murdered their children and told him to let her go. He also made up the names Teddy Daniels and Rachel Solando because he wants to remove the guilt in his heart that he didn't help Dolores when she needed it, mentally causing her to kill their children. He concocted a fantasy universe in which he never killed his wife or suffered a nervous breakdown. Aule says he accepted the truth 9 months ago, but he regressed. The next morning, Andrew/Teddy and Dr. Sheehan/Chuck are both sitting and smoking outside the building. It appears that Teddy is back in his fantasy, asking Chuck what their next move would be, as though they are still investigating at the hospital as a U.S. Marshal. Chuck asks him if he has any ideas while nodding to the doctors across the ground, ordering the staff to take Teddy. Teddy asks Chuck whether it's better to live as a monster or die a good man. He stands up and goes with the staff without hesitation, as he would rather choose to live his fantasy than accept the horrendous reality. The last scene leaves us to think that Andrew/Teddy might have accepted the reality but does not want to continue living with the traumas in the past, so he decides to be lobotomized instead, so he can forget the reality and die as a good man. And there you have it. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more movie recaps like this. Good night.